Pursuant to Section 15.2, 1427 of the Code of Virginia and amendments thereto, the Floyd County Board of Supervisors will conduct a public hearing on December 8, 2020, 9:30 a.m. or as soon thereafter as possible in the boardroom of the County Administration Building, 120 West Oxford Street, Floyd, Virginia. The purpose of the public hearing is to give the citizens of Floyd County the opportunity to comment on a proposed ordinance to adopt emergency procedures to ensure continuity of county government in response to the COVID-19 disaster in keeping with Virginia Code Section 15.2, 1413, and being substantially similar to the measures enacted by the board on June 9, 2020. The ordinance would continue the emergency procedures in place for a period not exceeding 6 months from the date of adoption. A copy of the proposed ordinance may be reviewed in the office of the County Administrator, 120 West Oxford Street, Floyd, Virginia, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., or provided in hard copy or electronic format by calling or writing to the County Administrator's office. Due to the public health threat posed by the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic, current guidance by the Governor of Virginia and the Virginia Department of Health on social distancing and public gatherings, the meetings may occur via electronic means or by physical attendance. The in-person gathering size may be limited. The meeting will be streamed live via internet, and any Floyd County citizen wishing to submit comments may do so, and they will be entered into the official minutes of the Floyd County Board of Supervisors, and they will be read by the chair or designee at the board meeting. And Mr. Chairman, this was properly advertised on November 19th and 26th.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. You have before you a continuity of local government ordinance that would largely accomplish the same measures as your previously adopted continuity of local government ordinance. I think it was the 6-month version was adopted in May of this year. And by way of a brief overview, under the Code of Virginia and Freedom of Information Act, there's really only one way to vary from the standard meeting provisions, and that's for achieved during a declared emergency or disaster, in which the board members could meet remotely without a quorum physically present, but only to respond directly to the disaster or emergency. And that is too limiting to really respond. It was never intended, I don't think it was ever envisioned that we'd be facing a pandemic quite like we are, where actually meeting together sometimes in some circumstances may serve to not respond to the pandemic, but worsen the pandemic. So this is designed to give you some freedom to continue to the operations of local government, even if things get worse. We're seeing a spike, unfortunately, nationwide, and it may become necessary sometime in the near future to alter your current meeting procedures. So it's recommended that you have this in place just to give you that ability. Now, in May, the governor proposed and the General Assembly adopted some amendments in to the Commonwealth's budget that does provide local bodies the authority to adopt alternative meeting procedures during times of emergency, but that provision is a little more limited than what is potentially available to you under 15.2, 1413, which is the continuity of local government provision. So although you do have the ability to rely on the governor's budget amendments, and you do have the ability to rely on that in case of a lapse of this ordinance, which, as I said, I think back in May, can only stay in place for 6 months at a time. It's recommended to have this in place as well. Not only does it enable you to adopt alternative meeting procedures and delay certain actions if necessary due to the pandemic, but it also delegates authority to constituent bodies such as the EDA to do the same, planning commission, bodies of that nature. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to address them. But otherwise, it is recommended to adopt.
This says that we adopted this ordinance that I have in front of me on the 13th day of October, 2020.
You did an emergency.
That
Wasn't
was-
that when you adopted the emergency ordinance that was in place for 60 days?
Right, okay. So that's what this is, for 60
We're
days.
essentially re-adopting it
You're-
for the full length.
So
Right.
you want us to go for the 6 months?
Right. You adopted it in October for 60 days to allow time to have this public hearing.
Right,
Now that we duly advertised it, it can stay in effect
Gotcha.
for the 6
All right.
months.
just making sure I
If
understand.
we do nothing, it would run out in a few days.
December
5
15th.
days.
Okay.
But now this, so this would only be in effect for 4 more months then.
No, it would be 6 months from the date of adoption.
So it'd be 6 months from this date. So to extend, we did 6 months, we did 2 months, now we're going 6 months because of it, we advertised it for the meeting.
Yes, and let us all pray that by the time this extension expires, there will be no need for it because the vaccine
The
will
vaccines will work.
widely
Well,
distributed.
and also, you know, we're doing it for the 6 months. 3 months from now, it's no longer needed. We can rescind it and go back to normal practices.
Absolutely.
You know, it's not, we're not,
Absolutely.
it's just saying we can do it for 6 months if necessary.
And even if the ordinance stays in place, as soon as it's safe to do so, I would recommend you for absolutely normal practice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because we would need to end the state of emergency that we've been in since March as well.
Yep.
Unusual times.
Yes.
Well, I guess I need a motion to approve it.
Oh, yeah. Gotta open it to the public.
All right,
I'm in a hurry too. I just-
now, we're forgetting that.
Yep.
Let's forget that part,
Morley.
yeah. But anyway, I'll call the vote for, public hearing closed and, open the floor for a motion to accept.
Have we invited anyone to
You
speak?
gotta invite the public to, we have done
Yeah, I'm
that.
sorry.
The lawyer throws us out of whack
It's
after
okay.
trouble.
Is there anybody? Does anyone want to speak?
We can, you ready,
I guess I can close it now. I get ahead of myself, I'm sorry. See, I won't have Terry, of course, I'll have Jerry here to keep me on. Open the floor to motion to accept.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, any other discussion? Ms. Morris?
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Yoder?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Booth?
Yes.
Mr. Sherman?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. I was watching the news this morning, I saw the first lady got the vaccine in England, she was 90, and she said she felt just fine, and everybody ought to go for it, and she needed a cup of tea.
There you go.
Well, I don't want to think it if it's gonna make a good cup of tea. Can I do coffee?
Yeah,
Well,
right, dirty water.
We have been rebels for years. How about Long Island iced tea instead of a hot tea?
I'm not much of a hot tea.
She was very positive about it.
I missed that she had COVID.
She had not, she was in the hospital for other things, but she had
Oh,
not had
okay.
it, she was just taking the vaccine.
That's awesome.
They were hoping to start with 100 a day and work up to 400 vaccinations a day by next week
Hmm.
at this place. Go back down to 9. The next item is your resolution approval for the third quarter appropriations. I'll let Ms. Ryan explain a couple of changes that we had from last quarter.
Basically, it's what you saw last quarter, but last quarter you approved a step increase starting December 1 for accounting employees. And this quarter's appropriation, right above where it has the operating budget table, you'll see that for the next quarter, it'll cost $10,147.89 to do that for another 3 months, for January through March.
I'm assuming at the end of the year, then we'll have to balance it, contingency to make that work.
Well, the reason I'm doing it quarterly is I'm actually
Oh,
asking
you're
this.
actually,
When you approve this, you're actually approving this to come out of contingency now. I'm trying to do it as we appropriate each quarter so that we have a really good idea of where our contingency stands.
And right now, it stands at 75,000
for the quarter,
for the quarter.
for the year.
That's just what we're appropriating for this quarter,
75,000.
But once we appropriate, I'll be turning around and taking 10,000 out of it.
So what's left in contingency now?
I didn't run that, I could,
Okay. All right. Huh? No.
well, we use contingency for a PSA, the valves.
Right.
That was the big thing we take out of contingency. We took that 1 month of 3,000 something for pay increase.
Yeah, it was already,
contingency.
yeah,
Right.
to start in this, to pay the December month in this
So
quarter.
it'll be.
But so far,
Yeah.
So that's that's all we've used out of it so far that I can think of, those two things.
That's all I can think of.
Will you be able to send, I guess we'll see it in January,
When we're done with the meeting, I can print where it is.
Oh, okay.
As of right now. It's in-
All right, that'd be great. Thank you.
So I guess we need approval of that.
Move approval of the appropriations for the third quarter.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion?
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder,
Yes.
Ms. Cooperman,
Yes.
Mr. Booth,
Yes.
Mr. Sherman,
Yes.
motion carries. Thank you. The next item is discussion of the legislative recommendations for the 2021 General Assembly. Added the items that you discussed last month. Were there others that you have thought of you wanted to add since then? Try to schedule legislators to come in maybe in January if you all desire. We can just send this to you.
You can get them, yeah, that's one.
Yeah, I'd love to see them.
That's the big
When
one.
do they start their session?
I don't know that I've seen the date yet, I'm sorry.
I wonder if they would do it virtual.
Oh, sure.
I mean, I'm just saying they haven't,
I would,
especially our state senator hasn't come
Right.
and due to the virus, maybe wouldn't want to come to.
Yeah. some kind of face-to-face would be great.
Yep.
That'd be better than nothing.
Okay.
You see him everywhere else, see why you come here.
Yeah.
No, I've been in a couple of virtual meetings with Mr. Rush, I'm sure he would be glad to.
Well, I just, yeah, that would be better than keeping it to 15 minutes.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly what we talked about, or if it was even an agreement or the consensus of the board. I remember mentioning something to do with, the Second Amendment related issues, and I didn't find that in here. Am I mistaken on that? I very well could have missed it.
Well, I put at the bottom of general government, one about the community and the sheriff's office.
Mm-hmm. I seen that one, that was one we talked about.
I may have missed that, Mr. Coleman.
If I remember correctly from typing the minutes, you proposed it and asked for
If
your
everybody was okay.
feedback and nobody responded, so I didn't know if there really was consensus.
Do you remember what it was?
Maybe you could just say what you.
Yeah, so basically, if the rest of the board would agree, just to, some type of reference, I apologize, I wouldn't have all the verbiage correct, but to be mindful of any changes to gun legislation and the impacts that it could affect or have on localities and its citizenry.
I don't have a problem with that.
Because there's a lot of that's gonna come up this session.
I would like to go more, but I'm trying to be respectful to everyone and just to have something in there would be better than nothing.
I don't have a problem with that, you know, or something to that effect. It's basically asking the General Assembly to be mindful of the Second Amendment as they move forward on any gun legislation.
I would put it as simple as request the General Assembly to respect Second Amendment rights.
That's fine, if we can agree with that, I was just trying
Yeah,
to
that's
find a
fine.
median that we could all agree on.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but I mean, that's.
I'm cool with that.
I like Mr. Rio's version better. Thank you, I was trying to test the
Yeah, I
waters.
get it.
Thank you, Ms. Morris.
Thank you, sorry, yeah, I remember us talking about that now.
Yeah,
We went back and listened to the minutes.
I remember now, there wasn't much
Sometimes,
conversation.
I guess it's probably hard to listen to the minutes, because then tell people nod their head, and then it's,
Mhm.
you know, you can't hear that in the minutes to be able to verbalize it.
Right. So that was consensus.
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean, for me.
For me,
okay.
there's three. Four.
Thanks for bringing that up.
No, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity just to discuss those matters.
Did you feel like that was strong enough, what I put in about the immunity for the sheriff's office? Or
There is an interview. I had a conversation with the sheriff recently about them.
not for a little while?
Yeah, I think so.
He might have some different
He
wording.
might.
Okay.
If I may respectfully submit that. And it may be in the form of another type of action. Everything else we're good.
I think so. And I don't know, they talk about it every year, but there's been talk of limiting the number of bills that they can introduce down there this year, but they say that every year and it never, so I don't
Yeah,
know.
we said that last year, and look what happened, or the last session.
Couldn't even catch it.
It's like saying we're gonna limit the voice of the people.
I always thought the best form of limitation was just putting them in that 60-day window, and then.
Say word.
Yeah, if you want a lot of bills, you're gonna have to work for it.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do the same. Do the whole year's business.
Now, I wish they would agree to stop passing bills that have amendments and add-ons.
Yeah.
If them and Congress would do that, it would be a much cleaner process, but, or clearer anyway, but.
I'm always advocating that they shouldn't, you know, because a lot of the amendments has nothing whatsoever to do with the bill. I mean,
Be like
gotta
us,
get to researching something and we'll find it under some off the wall.
be like us approving the bills with the motion, and then one of us adding on that from here on out, we'll get free lunch and breakfast, you know?
I felt that way a little bit when we discussed a raise for the appropriation in the whole county without discussing it earlier. But I felt that way about the way we did the appropriations 3 months ago when we passed a raise without discussing it before, you know.
Well, we had discussed it to some extent before and said that we would look at it again in December, but
But I'm just saying, I felt that way, that it could have been a standalone item, but
well,
whatever.
we could have, I guess. Still can, if it makes anybody feel
No,
better.
it's fine, and that's the way I felt about it.
My favorite one, every time I think about them, was they was trying to pass this big bill in Congress. And they kept adding amendments to it. And one of the amendments was something like $200,000 to study DNA of a grizzly bear. And one senator says, and as far as I know, we don't have no grizzly bears in my family. So, you know, and that always hit me. I thought, you know, that just shows you how much pork they add to this stuff. You know? I guess we just need a consensus on that, or do we need?
Yeah, that's fine. CARES money may take a little bit if you want to go and get Mr. Clark here.
Yeah. He may have important things to do.
Good morning. Some of the, just the maintenance kind of things we've been working on this past month, catching up on a lot of stuff because we had holidays and a lot of people taking time off. They trying to catch up on all the gravel roads. Then a little bit of pothole patching on Black Ridge and Canning Factory. Still has scheduled. It's going to be some major milling and paving on Route 8 South towards Parkway. They are going to get that. But it's probably going to be like 4 weeks kind of stuff. Just get the whole thing. Did some ditching and some shoulder repair on Good Neighbors Road and on Gallimore. Finished the rural rustic construction project on Quisenberry. I think that turned out real well. They got a couple more things to do with some driveways, which we did mill run earlier in the year. Again, some patching on Sawmill Hill and the New Valley. Just kind of catching up on a little bit here and there. And then a few weather events that dropped in there on us. And, a little bit of flooding, a little bit of snow. So kind of been all around doing a lot of different kind of things. And the crew, well, we put together a crew from several areas to do the work on Quisenberry, so that maybe you take them from one area that are not doing as much as they've done on it. But we did get that done before the winter weather came in, so we're glad about that. And we've talked to some of the board members whose area this is in about the preliminary work on Ponderosa, which is an excellent 6-year plan. We're having a few right-of-way issues, but we've talked to board members in that area. We're still working on a section of that, and that'll probably be the next one on the 6-year plan. There was a question you had about Dustin had about the road naming. We've got approval to do that pretty much however the board would like, and I'll discuss that. How to approach that with you. It'll need a resolution, but looks like we're from Central Office that we can move forward with that. It can be any kind of facility that we're talking about. So I'll talk to you about that.
Yeah, sure.
Without going into the list of the gravel roads and some of the other flooding repair roads, that's all I have. Any board requests or counter requests? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot. First, I want to say thank you. I was talking to a landowner down on Booth Creek, I guess that's borders Lincoln District too, but, just all the work that they've done on pipe repairs down there, and we've had some major issues, washouts and whole roads, gone, some of these floods, and the big repairs that have done down there, that, they've, in the last flooding, they held up, and so he communicated to me that he was very thankful that they finally seems to have a fix there, and, it's.
You hate it when you put something in there immediately gets taken.
Yeah, it's no longer washing things down his property,
Yeah.
so he was thankful about that, so I just wanted to pass that along.
I'll
Appreciate
pass
the
that
work
along.
there.
Guys in check.
Yeah, and, he said, I don't even want it paid now, he said, so. Okay, dirt road in the county. Don't want it paid.
Right.
Well, that's the thing, a lot of people are like that. In several counties, if we can keep them, we have the time to maintain them all as long as we'd like to. People, they wouldn't really care to have them paved at all. Kind of like the raw nature of gravel road.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the washboards and
Right.
stuff like that.
Anyway, good work there.
Thank you.
I've gotten several complaints about Goose Creek and some of the roads around that area there. I haven't personally drove down through there, but, I had a couple people tell me that it was getting pretty bad. And then I've been on some other dirt roads. I mean, I think it's probably common throughout the county right now, freezing, thawing water.
Yeah. It's not on the list, so they probably have to, probably it's time.
But anyway, there's been several that I went down that are really rough shape, but I feel like that's kind of the nature of it right now.
Yeah.
So anyway, appreciate everything y'all do.
Sure thing.
Yeah, it's funny you should say Goose Creek, because I had a call too. I guess, we got close to 6+ inches.
Yeah.
And that comes down that.
Yep.
And, yeah, I think it's probably necessary to look at that road each and every time we get these major, flooding events, because it's gonna do something there, especially if it falls in that northeastern, west central part of Floyd. So it shouldn't be an afterthought, I guess, is what
I think it is on the list as far as flooding repairs.
Yeah.
That they hit, and they may have been able to hit it and just kind of get it passable and need to come back. And just
Right. And I mean, I've mentioned this before, there's old culverts that you took out after the
Mhm.
total washout that really do need to be removed. They don't need to be sitting there. On White Oak Grove Road, which is in Justin's district, but I drive it a lot because it's right on the edge there. We're having a situation develop kind of like what's going on Bethlehem Church Road, and I just noticed it yesterday coming out, going to Route 8. It's on the side of the road going towards Carriage Road, so it's down at that far end on 617. And it is, you can see like a whole section of the road looks like it's going to fall off. It's gotten much lower, and you'll probably want somebody to check on that. Also, I've alerted a couple folks, but there is a large tree that's hanging over Sunny Ridge Road that many of the residents are calling a widowmaker, and we thought that with these last couple of winds, that it may have dislodged, but I know we don't have a bucket truck, but it really does need to come down, because if it comes down at the wrong time and somebody's driving it, it's going to be bad, because it's a pretty big tree. And then I've just noticed sometimes it's amazing how these on surface treated road these potholes just form
Overnight, yeah.
overnight.
Like, yeah.
And I've got, there's 2 of them on my road. It almost looks like somebody's dropped something in a big hole, but up on Dobbins Hollow, there's 2 of them now that have formed, and they're, again, they might just, break an axle. One of them is deep, and if you've got 2 cars passing, I've just started pulling over and letting another car pass. And that's really all I have. Thank you for all the work on the flooding. Again, it was pretty intense. Privately, if you could send me an email explaining for my constituents and some of Lawrence that go out Old Pike Road to talk about what's going on with the Brush Creek Bridge.
Yes.
There were some surveyors out there, and if you wouldn't mind just privately, sending me an email?
Yes.
I just, there are many folks that talk to me about that.
Yeah.
Because so many of my constituents ride out that way to go to work. So, thank you.
There is a schedule for that. I'm sure it may be on a contract they're putting together that'll do several bridges at one time. But it's being developed, and I can tell you when the ad date for it is.
Okay. Yeah, I'd just like some information. I mean, you can get Chris to do it or somebody to do it, but yeah, I'd just like to know a little bit more about it. You can pass it on to the whole board, but it's really, my district. I just wonder if Lawrence too. That's it.
Thank you for your research on this couple projects. Thank you for Questenberry Road and on those naming projects. Was that for both of those that we've discussed? We can talk about it more in depth later, but is that for both of them that you've received permission on?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. And I'll share that with you all when everything kind of gets a little closer. And I don't want you to think I was leaving you out there. But, so thank you for that. Thanks. Questenberry Road looks great. Really appreciate that. I just have two minor things. On White Rock Road, excuse me, near the intersection of Delaney Road. So there's a lot of runoff that is happening there. And what's happening is I think Delaney Road is a gravel road and it's pulling all the gravel onto White Rock and it's settling. And it is causing a hazard. And it's obviously settling at the lowest point, and there's piles of gravel forming on the travel portion of the highway there. So I'm not sure really don't even want to pretend to say what needs to be done, but if you can look at that, it's in the intersection of White Rock and Delaney Road, they'll see it's washing back down the hill.
Okay.
So, and then the only other concern is on Indian Valley Road. If you're going towards Montgomery County, it's going to be up from the White Rock Road intersection. I'm not sure what it is, whether it be a ditch that needs cleaning or a spring that's developed. It's been there for quite some time, but the water's running across the road, both lanes on the travel portion of the road. And in this time of year, it turns to ice and it's impacting both sides of the road. And the concerning part of that is it's not on a flat portion of the road. So it's in a curve, and right beside the oncoming lane is Indian Creek.
Yeah.
So
Nowhere to go.
if an individual was to hit that in perfect conditions, you may be top up in the river. So that would be all. And appreciate all the work that's been done. And hope everyone in the residency has a Merry Christmas.
Thanks very much.
I too want to thank you for all the work that's been done. Especially want to mention what they're trying to do at the crosswalk there at the Baptist Church to get the water drained off. I haven't stopped and looked at it, but Darrell described what you did, and I think it's going to be a great help.
Yeah, we'll see how that works.
Just want to remind you, still haven't took the parking spaces away at the Milestone place.
Right.
And those need to be done. And if we're not going to move the handicap parking space at the courthouse, then we need to line off the parking space beside it. Because right now, if a handicapped person pulls into that, they have trouble getting out because you still have a car. We had talked about moving it back down to the other.
We may end up doing it.
And which I think needs to be done, but if we're not going to do that, or if it's going to be spring, if it may be a long time, can we at least line that one off with tape or whatever, just so that they can get in and out of the vehicle? Because right now, a handicapped person with a wheelchair, if they're getting out on the passenger side, if they pull in there, they can't. And that's all I had, other than just wish everybody a Merry Christmas and hopefully a safe winter. Maybe you've seen the worst of the snow so far. That's all I had.
Is there one more fire?
No. I do for later in the day. Not for David today.
That was funny.
Well, I still have people that wants to know if they can get their roads machined. I told them Probably get done, this time of year, it's hard to do it. Going back to Justin's district, Western Road, I guess because I was supposed to, a lot of people were, really, really thankful for it, but you always have one. But there was one guy said that there was one little section of it that was sort of like going over the Rumble Strip.
Yeah, it gets like that, that's some of the loose stuff, that should work itself out.
Yeah, that's what I told him. I said, it's gotta have time to settle in.
The same thing happened on Diamond
Yeah, and, if we had a lot of really warm weather, it probably done took care of itself. I said, that's just normal gravel.
No problem, I take care of it too.
Yeah.
Hopefully not tear it up too much.
But, most people has told me that they really appreciate it, and I told them that was Mr. Coleman's doing, not me.
And if you recall, when we had the public hearing on this last year before, we had a lot of people who wasn't there.
And, they want a lot more of it done, but they're pretty well satisfied with what's got done. And, I say this in jest, but I shouldn't, but I was thinking coming to work or coming down this morning, that I was gonna get you to grind that new pavement up and put some more in there, because I think that batch was jinxed or something. We've had 4 wrecks up there, one of them was a fatality, and I know somebody wiped out last night. I don't know if it's got a little oil on it or people just driving too fast or what, but, I mean, it's a great road. I mean, I love it the way it worked out. But it seems, I guess last night the temperature and maybe some moisture may have pulled some of that oil up, sort of maybe let go our ice or something. It's a great job, I appreciate it, but I'll echo what Mr. Booth said. I appreciate all y'all's hard work. I hope you have a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you all very much.
Yep. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Oh, one more.
I gotta get
You
Jerry.
got it. Catch you
Yeah.
next year.
He didn't slow down, get out of here.
Go, collect $200.
Gotta get Jerry, keep him in line.
That's pretty fun.
Thank you, Jerry.
Ms. Angie and I kind of had to work fast on this update on the CARES fund yesterday, and this morning.
So you're in there with your calculator this morning.
Well, it's been a little crazy the last few days.
Yeah.
But we think we've got everything listed and all the court requests that we have gotten in. And you'll see what we have left for distribution. Our one thought was that if you all wanted to do another hazard pay
Yes.
payment to the ones that we've done before.
EMS.
And I would like to add solid waste this time.
Can we?
The auditor has said they can't tell us not to do it, but we will document it very well.
Good.
And I saw with the town council meeting the other night, they are giving hazard pay to all their employees, even their office folks. But they have agreed if that is not approved, they will take it from their budget.
I mean, that's really the risk we're taking, is we have to take it out of contingency
Right.
to get through, and especially on solid waste, I think I really agree with you.
And I really think that would be approved. I mean,
I don't see how they can not approve that.
I agree.
to me, they are more.
I agree. In contact with so much.
More so, not
Just
running down the deputies, but to me, they're more in contact with than they are.
Right. I mean, between EMS and solid waste, that is your,
Recycling, I mean,
right.
I can tell you from working over there one day, you touch every piece of everything that comes through
Yep.
there.
Yep.
And, so Ms. Ryan has calculated up what it would cost to do that. We would make that as a suggestion.
And what was the cost?
If we were to do solid waste from March through December, plus September through December for the people who've already got it,
Uh-huh,
it'd be around 225,000.
okay.
I'd like to insert my statement at this time. I'm sure the others may
Yeah,
wish to.
we'll all, please, thank you.
I assume my previous one still stands as well.
That's just solid waste, or is that anybody?
That would be, the deputies and the EMS that you did before to pay the rest of the year.
Okay.
Solid waste for the full,
For the full time.
Is this by matter of consensus or what? I can't remember.
You just been doing it by consensus.
and then voting on the bills.
Right.
When they come in.
But I don't know of any other requests that we've received for these funds. We've made,
You
we've
just
made,
not doing, you're not getting any special over anybody else over there, so.
and you'll note we've made, one payment to the task force, $100,300. They are not planning on spending that whole amount of money. And we are going to do a, I don't know if I told you this last month or not, they're doing a few food distribution through the task force. They did one Friday in Giles County, but I have not had a chance to talk to their county administrator to see how that went. But, they were expecting a big turnout, so I talked with the folks at Plenty here, so we want to do one with them in January.
My question is gonna be,
And I talked to her about doing something in December, but I have not
Right,
heard anything back from her.
so I really think that there is hunger in this county, and there's a lot of it. And it's not just food insecurity. People are hungry right now. And I believe that we need to figure out a way to feed people, to help them in some way with their heating and electricity, if we can, through, I mean, there are people that are in a bad way. And I don't know how we can manage to make this work, but as much as we're helping people with their businesses, I think that there are so many people right now that are basically on the edge from COVID.
Well, one thing we could, of course, I don't think we could have the time to do it in this, but if we get the next round of money that they're talking about, the social services has their heating and air program.
Correct.
I think also then community action also have some type of
Yes, they do.
program. So we could actually divert funds to those two programs to help what you're talking about, at least on the heating part.
Absolutely.
Having more funds available, because I know they only have a certain amount of money there, and they generally spread it out as even as they can, so
Right.
it might not pay somebody's whole bill, it may pay a quarter of it. But if we could add to that,
Absolutely. And plenty.
I think that would do what you were talking about on the heating part.
Because I suggested to her yesterday, she said they usually serve about 110 coming through for the food distribution. And I said, well, maybe we could add some extra things to that, turkey or a ham or something special,
Absolutely,
for
for
the
Christmas.
holiday.
Yes,
To take home with them.
Yes.
But I haven't heard back from her yet.
my thought going into this was, maybe there's a two-way win, and in full disclosure, I'm farming, so I don't want anything out of it, but there's people in the county that are selling things. And I just wondered if there might be, a way to work with food banks and work with our farmers where it's kind of a win-win, where we can get some things plus buy directly from within the county.
Like that idea.
And again, I'm not, if that was available, I don't want to sell anything to anybody because I don't want to be involved in it, but there's other people that are doing that, and
It could help the business
it
and
could
help the
business,
people at
it
the
could help
same
the people,
time.
but it needs to, and even so far as to, it crossed my mind, I've got, next week I've got some dates at my USDA processor for me. And, I even thought about it, if there was money here, I mean, we could even go so far as,
Health process?
buy animals from a farmer and have them go all the way through and have products come back, that would
Go right to
go right to Pioneer. There's other food banks, there's several churches that are going, I don't know if that's possible or not, but it
Well,
might be.
again, that goes back to our cold storage venture. I know several places that do little feeding, but right now their freezers are full. And even if they wanted to take on more, they'd have to buy more freezers. So my point, maybe with these places like Plenty and some of these people, in connection with what you're talking about, is could storage purchases be made with this CARES money to help? And not just in meat, you got produce, you got, it could be refrigeration or.
If they have needs, maybe that would be a time to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just, I got thinking about
I was
it.
just saying if I heard anything from her, but,
You could have a lot of, even if it's just hamburger,
Right.
if you got, 2,000 pounds of hamburger, that would feed a lot of people over there,
And if we could use some of that funding to actually buy a freezer to keep it
Sure,
here,
yeah.
Does she know the,
And for as produce, refrigeration, maybe not the big refrigeration units we're talking about, but our project
Place
living.
like Plain, like a 20 cubic foot
Yeah.
freezer or something.
Might be all they need to
might be plenty.
And there's other,
Does she
I
know
just don't
the,
want to forget the other, there's several other places in the county that do.
the timeline.
She aware?
make it available to all of them that we can find out.
Like in my district, there's the Copperhill Church of the Brethren.
That do it, yeah. And there's church,
She mentioned that too,
Yeah.
there's others too.
yeah, there's churches in every district, I think, could do it to a certain extent.
Absolutely.
Of course, what we're gonna do in January with him will come from our task force money. And we're not gonna spend all that.
I just hate,
Yeah.
Citizens helping citizens.
Well, I mean, if we can help a few
Yeah.
different people, I think that's,
How much were you have a number in mind that you were thinking to put towards that, or?
I'm talking about with the,
well, we have 333 left after the raises, 333, 401, 23. If we round
I
that,
think that's something that would qualify.
feeding people?
Food and
Oh, yeah.
also storage spaces Jerry's talking about.
I'm not sure about the freezers, we'll check on that,
Well, the storage,
the storage.
keep feeding them. I'd say shoot as much of it as you can. I'm all for it. I mean, take
Well-
300,000.
if,
Buy.
don't shoot me, if it helps feed people and you look into it and we were talking about buying 3 or 4 freezers, but that money wouldn't cover it, I wouldn't be above us paying for it out of contingency. I mean, we're talking about feeding people.
Yeah.
This is not,
If this money, if we've
doesn't
got a couple
cover.
100,000, we could go toward food, and the only thing stopping us is a few freezers.
Yeah,
You see-
absolutely.
We'll buy some freezers.
Yeah, we'll buy some freezers, absolutely.
For this
And,
position.
but 300,000, I mean, between, like you were saying,
I don't know if you
heating,
can store that.
food, I mean,
Well, no, you
that's
have
a lot of
to,
food, but.
we have to set a number, but a reasonable number, but I don't know that.
Bills and the heating bills, there was something about them that we couldn't do. I'd have to go back and read that again.
And, you were with community action. I mean, they've got stuff that they're doing too. I mean, like you were saying. I just, they're hungry and cold and I just can't in good conscience turn away.
Well, even if all canned goods that could be distributed
Right.
throughout the year, I mean, that's.
And as far as even the meat, I don't know how this would work, but if we were in a position to do more meat, I mean, there's, like Hunter said, the hungry, if we could store that,
Right.
if it got to that point, it's way down the road.
I guess I would suggest not putting all our money towards that, just in case we have
That's something.
Something happens.
other things
But we're running out, I mean, we haven't heard about an extension, right?
I did see one email this morning that their, BACO has sent to our congressional members to try to get that extended, but,
There's one or two of them talking about it, but nothing's been put forward.
no.
And if they don't do that prior to them leaving, they won't be coming back in time to
Right,
extend
I
it,
know.
so.
Maybe it'll be in sort of like all of the,
I
they're
hope
talking
they'll
about
do the next one and it all.
an extent, yeah.
What do you think, like maybe 200,000 or
I think that'd be,
towards that?
I think that's
Just-
a lot of money.
I know,
It's
250,
a lot of,
How about up to 200,000?
up to 250. I think we could, I mean, I'd say up to 300. I just can't see not spending this money, like you said,
My
cameras.
concern is the storage and stuff, even if we buy, I wanna make sure that, up to 200,000. If you talk to these people and we end up buying 4 freezers and then packing them full of frozen goods
the
and it's
thing
only
is getting
100.
them here,
Huh?
the thing is buying them and getting them here before,
December 30th.
yeah.
I don't think y'all realize how much 200,000 is, and,
I know, it's a lot.
I mean, we're talking tractor trailer weights, probably, if you're doing canned goods,
Oh, gosh.
and even meat. I mean, I've got 8 freezers at the house, and I ain't got no $100,000 oil meat at the house, I can promise you. It's,
Well, would you be more comfortable? I mean, the thing of it is, anything we do, again, we're rolling that dice. If it's not covered, we're paying.
here's
Would you
kind
be
of my
more
thing.
comfortable with 100 or
We're probably
150?
gonna have to call a special meeting sometime in December. I mean, potentially.
Yeah.
There's a potential for that, so I mean, I don't know if this necessarily is,
Our last go around.
I say put 200, and if we don't spend it, we don't spend it, but I mean,
Well, I'm saying, that's why I said up to. That way, anywhere in between, if it's reasonable,
I like the up to because it gives us wiggle room.
yeah. Because they still gotta get back with plenty, they gotta get back and get all this, and it may turn out that,
Get it here.
but if plenty,
Well-
if some of these places can take frozen meat, I think I've got some sources that I can get some processed from local people. And not for me, just to be really clear, I don't wanna make any money off of it, I think I have some connections that I can make some of that happen where it'd be
Of
local.
course, you have Agency on Aging, they provide to the meals.
Absolutely, that's what I'd say go up to 250.
If we spend 200,000 in the next 2 weeks, I'll be happy to sign a letter to have a call meeting to spend some more.
Okay. And you all are okay with doing the hazard pay again?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Where would these freezers be put?
well, they'd have to be at their facilities,
Yeah.
whether it's the church or the
Yeah.
planning or,
The churches.
yeah, that's,
It could be as much as just scheduling delivery of the meat on days they do their delivery so that you can go straight to people's houses.
well, it could be.
Yeah.
It could
That's what I
be.
do on a lot of things when I'm,
It could be
I'll take
straight
the
from
beef
there.
and take it straight to the stores and sell it for them.
Could be from straight from A to C without stopping at B. Yeah. And same thing on some of the produce,
I just want to talk to all of our citizens too, that there are so many that are not comfortable asking. And they're in a situation right now that's this gets emotional for me because there are so many that have found themselves in a situation right now that they are not used to, they are uncomfortable with, and they are very proud. And I know if I was in the same situation, it would be very hard for me to ask for a Christmas turkey or a ham. I don't know that I could do it. And I just want people to know that we are here thinking about this because we want you not to go hungry, not to be cold, and we are here. And I just don't mean to get emotional, but this is very difficult times for folks.
Yeah, and, I think we've done a lot to help businesses so far. We talked about trying to do a payout to citizens, but of course that got knocked in the head, just like the federal government. but the federal government needed knocking in. But anyway, I think if this next round comes out, maybe looking more at individualizing what we can do for the individual. And I know helping businesses, it's all in the same pyramid, but maybe geared toward the individuals than, at least at first.
If it's within the,
Got
that's
it?
the problem, it's these guidelines. And I mean, I know the guidelines are there for a reason, believe me.
Just a short time frame. is what-
Yeah.
And maybe it's terminology, maybe instead of, we're giving everybody help with any medical cost that may be associated with COVID. It's how you term it. And a lot of this stuff with the federal government. And, you give them a one-time check to go help pay your health insurance or your doctor's visits or whatever. And I don't know if that would qualify it or not. Of course, we'd have to see, but a lot of it's in the language you use to qualify it.
Okay.
The other thing that I was gonna ask about was, I just noticed a lot of people asking about firewood lately. Is there anything that would qualify
It's heating,
heating with wood like that? I don't know.
because there's a lot of locals around here.
We can look and see. I don't,
I don't know, I mean, I know a lot of older homes in the county still heat with wood, and
And not so old.
it's
Depends on
probably,
your definition of,
probably a higher portion of your elderly citizens that have been here a long time, the older farmhouses and stuff are heating with wood, so
Yeah,
it may hit a population that would really need it, I don't know.
okay,
Just a thought.
sure, check on.
yeah, and that's helping local business people too,
Sure.
that cut wood, so.
Thank you for all the good ideas.
Thank you for
Yeah.
staying on top
We'll
of
see
this,
as
and
much.
staying on top of the solid waste folks and looking out for them.
yes.
Yeah, and I appreciate that retroactive, that's really important.
You were fighting for them.
They're near and dear.
Yep.
The last item that I have, you will need to appoint an acting county administrator effective January 1 to be able to execute documents and take care of things. And I had discussed with you all some additional pay for some of the staff members. So you can do all that in one motion. Whoever you would like to appoint, if it's
Are you on to take it?
Not a double or triple.
I'm ready for a motion.
I'd make a motion that we appoint Ms. Ryan as acting county administrator effective January 1. And we also approve the salary adjustments for the positions as previously discussed with the county administrator.
Second.
Motion second, any other discussion?
Did that cover it?
yes,
Ms. Morris?
Mr. Yoder,
Yes.
Ms. Cookie,
Yes,
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Booth,
Yes.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
motion carried.
thank you, Cindy.
Congratulations or
Condolences.
condolences.
One or the other. You'll find out soon.
And thank you to the other staff, there's,
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
Ms. Ryan's gonna take on a lot, but the other staff's gonna have to take on some stuff as
Quite a
well.
bit too.
Yeah,
That's
so
right.
we appreciate everyone.
Go team.
That's all I have, Mr. Tim.
Okay. Well, we got back on,
You all have
Yeah.
been
Wow.
fast up there.
you will come forward.
Yeah, no, I thought you were bringing us gifts. Is that really good? Oh, maybe.
I'd rather have a ham than a turkey.
Might be a hammer turkey, but I think it's water reports.
Darn it. Now you're talking.
So yeah, this is all report. I didn't get, I'm gonna hand out copies of them. Is that it, everybody?
Oh.
Yeah, that's good. There should be a thin one and a thick one.
December 8th.
I'm getting
December 8th,
It's all good.
December, okay, you didn't get the December 8th one.
Hold on.
You get what you
Here you
need,
go.
and I'll get what I need.
I need some auditor.
There you go. That's coming your way.
I got one. See,
Alright,
You got that, huh?
you
the audit,
you got two of those.
got audit.
Well, you got a little and a big.
You need a little one and a big one.
Yep.
Is that what you got?
That's what we got.
You got an extra one of these?
Apparently there's two very.
I don't have one of those.
What is
This
this?
is,
There's a little
Are
one.
these the same?
No, that's the financial statements and that's the audit presentation.
Here's the
I don't have the little financial statement.
Yeah.
I have the big one.
It says audit
All
presentation.
presentation, and what did you say the other one?
He's got a little.
I got a little one that says financial statements.
I got a big one that says that.
I got a big one.
Well, I got a big one here that says that, and then I got a little.
What's the little one?
It's the audit presentation. There should be a thin one that has the audit presentation on the front, and then there should be the thicker audit report.
I don't know what those,
You don't know what that is?
Financial.
I'm not supposed to have it.
I don't know what that,
Scott, what is
Leave it
that?
to me.
we got this too.
That's a good question.
I got one
Okay,
of
look
them.
at it quick.
It's got charts and stuff in it, it's right pretty.
It's the right one. Shirley's put the wrong cover on top of the other cover.
Okay. But you have one that says audit presentation.
If you have a thin one, if you move past the first cover, it might have the right.
I see.
Okay.
Might put two covers in there.
Okay, so everybody got it?
I got you, but
We're
thicker
about to
than
find
that.
out, if he starts on a chart we don't have, we're gonna find out.
All right, sorry for the delay there. Those were pretty hot off the press. I think they were.
Yeah,
ready this
December
morning, but, again, my name is Scott Wickham, partner in charge of the county's audit. I appreciate you all having me here to go over the results. Always good to give good news. So, in a trying time we're in right now, I always happy to give good news. So, I'll hit some high points in the audit, and then I'll go through the thin handout. So I'll start with the thicker full audit report. On page 2 through 4, this is the independent auditor's report. And this is the opinion on the financial statements for the county and the school boards and the EDA, all together there, and it's a good, clean opinion, unmodified opinion, which means we feel the numbers presented are accurate, fairly accurate. There is one additional paragraph in there this year on page 3. For restatement of beginning balances, the school board actually had some savings on one of their capital leases and had amended their agreement and didn't tell us until this year's audit, so from the prior year audit, so we did have a restatement to correct that, but it worked out for everybody's benefit there. So a good, clean opinion there. On page 5
Could you
is
say
the,
that again, Scott?
sure, the school board had a lease, I believe that one was for IT type infrastructure.
Okay.
And in the prior year, they gave us the agreement and it was accrued to be paid. And as they were doing the process, they actually had some savings in that, so that the amount decreased. So we weren't told about that until the 2020 audit. So we corrected that beginning balance based on what they actually spent.
Was that just a matter of not communicating?
No, it was just a matter of the timing.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yep. Starting on page 5, we have the management discussion and analysis. And as the audit report is very, very thick, this is a very good summary that Cindy and Terry worked together to generate for us. So if you're only going to read part of the report, this is a good summary to kind of give you some comparable data to see where you are compared to last year. On page 15, Exhibit 1, in governmental accounting, there's several different types of accounting and methods of accounting, and this is full accrual accounting on Exhibit 1, which includes everything. So this includes all of the county's assets and all the county's debt. It's kind of the real big picture, be more comparable to business accounting if that's what you're used to. So across the bottom there, you see the net position or the net worth of the county and the school board and the EDA. The number that jumps out at you is the negative for the school board. That's nothing to be worried about. That is very common for school boards across the state, as they're allocated a calculated liability for the teacher pension. Nothing that anybody's done wrong. It's just a state allocation to account for that liability. On page 17, Exhibit 3. This is a balance sheet again, but it's focused more on the county, just the fund basis, so the short-term modified accrual. Modified accrual is your cash plus the short-term receivables plus short-term payables, so a lot more short-term view here. And you can see the fund balances across the bottom there. The one that I would look for is the unassigned fund balance. So the county had a total of $7.1 million unassigned. I'll get to it, but as you can see here, you all had a big increase in fund balance in total, but 10.3 of that is unspent bond proceeds for the project we own. So in total, it's inflated, but the unassigned is what you want to look at. Exhibit 5 on page 19. And I'm skipping a few pages here to kind of reconcile between the two different types of accounting. But Exhibit 5 is the income statement, again, on that short modified accrual accounting to kind of give you an idea of where the funds came from or where they went as well. You can see the decrease in the revenues over expenditures, about $3.3 million, and that's about what is spent in capital projects. So most of that is spent was restricted fund balance, essentially. All right, and then I'm going to jump all the way to the back of the report here. On page 128. And there's a whole lot of disclosures in there. If you want to read about pension till you fall asleep, it's in there. A lot of good information, but it's very detailed. On page 128 and 129, this is the gas report. This is the report on all the testing that we're required to do by the state and government auditing standards, test various compliance requirements. We have 2 items noted that we found. There's similar items to the prior year. I know that the staff has worked hard to get the journal entries correct for us when we show up, and we see an improvement each year. I think Cindy had more challenges this year than you could ever imagine with COVID pandemic and IT emergency and things like that all built on it, and it was even tougher than ever before. So it was in pretty good shape, and I was pretty happy with it, but we did have to propose material adjustments. The other item is related to segregation of duties at the Treasurer's office. It's just not a lot of staff there to have proper checks and balances. The next opinion on page 130 is uniform guidance. This is our testing on federal programs. This is a good, clean opinion. No items noted there. All our testing came back clean. We had on page 132 and 133, it gives you a summary of the federal funds that were included in the audit to the varying agencies. On page 132, you'll start noticing a few items that say COVID-19. So you all did start receiving some funding there. The school board, particularly for school nutrition, received some COVID-19 funding. Most of the county's COVID-19 funding will be in the FY21 fiscal year. There was a little bit, but most of it will be in FY21. We did most of our testing this year for federal programs around child nutrition because of the COVID-19 funding. So, any questions on the audit report before I move to the handout? All right, on page 2 of the handout. This gives you some trend information here, and we have a 5-year trend summary for you. You can see the increase in property taxes is about 4% per year. That trend goes back to about 2011. Well, I looked at that earlier this morning. There's an increase in intergovernmental, state and federal funds. It's a big increase this year, and a lot of that is driven due to increase in cases, social services, and CSA. So that 9% per year seems quite high, but it's mostly inflated between 2019 and 2020 with the increases of those services. There is also a little bit of increase in other funding coming through with the COVID money and some of the EDA projects and things. But most of it was led to subservices. Looking across the expenditures there, you'll see an 11% increase in admin over the period. A sizable amount of that increase this year was led to the IT repairs and things that were needed to fix that issue. So that is included in the IT expenses there. Health and welfare, quite a big increase, as I mentioned, related to increased cases at both CSA and social services. And then an increased high percentage in community development, but not a high dollar amount. That's led to the beginning to get those projects going with the EDA. So overall, an increase of 7% per year, which is a little bit higher than normal. But some of those are related to the CSA and social services cases that's out of your control, essentially. And then the other are projects that you all plan to spend getting off the ground. So some of that increase is planned, and some of it's out of your control. The debt service increase was increased about 4% per year, so it's pretty comparable to the tax increase there. Across the bottom, the fund balance increased about 23%. As I mentioned, that number is quite inflated because of having the bond money on hand at the end of the year. So, gave you the trend information. It's kind of hard to tell where you really feel where you are. On page 3, I can kind of help you with that a little bit. One thing we like to look at is the fund balance is a percentage of total operating expenditures. And when we say operating, we mean the total amount that you all have to help with the school board and the total amount that you all spend here. And just based on true fund balance, it's 50%, which is quite high. But when you look at unassigned, I mentioned that $7.1 million. That's the unassigned fund balance that you all should use for your measuring stick. And that's at 18%. So GFOA has a general recommendation of a 2-month minimum of about 17%. So you're just above that, and that's a minimum. And that doesn't account for things such as the locality. Some localities have a better tax basis than others, and more industry than others. It's a very general rule of thumb. So when you're looking at that, always take into account what you all have. That said, looking back to where you were, you now have more money in capital funds. So you have some other items set aside now that you didn't have several years ago.
But that puts us pretty close to what they're recommending, so.
It does. So in pretty good shape right now.
We're losing ground.
Yeah, we're losing ground.
You are losing ground, but
Yep.
you are just doing some projects too that are taking some of that. So.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I've been a little bit worried just from the standpoint of it's easy to maintain when the economy's doing well. So
Yes.
what happens if we hit a recession and we were starting to slip a little bit? And the reason I guess we're slipping is because we're growing our budget so much faster than we're growing our unassigned fund balance.
Yes. Yeah, a
It's
little
not that
bit.
we're losing money out of fund balance, it's that we're growing our budget faster than what we're putting money. So at some point, we've got to start thinking about if our budget goes up 2% a year, we've got to get some money in that fund balance to move it at the same rate.
Right, exactly. And as I did mention, that amount has decreased, but that amount does not include the amounts you would have set aside in the capital improvement,
right.
which is about $380,000 for you all and $280,000 for the school board.
Right, but still, the bottom line.
Yeah, exactly.
Those
Just to
could be used for
operations.
operations.
No,
which
not
is
without
what
a-
our fund
not without a
balance
board-
Needs to be there for.
board movement.
The unassigned fund.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
to keep us going before we collect taxes again.
Correct. Correct. So, and of course, always with a caveat of 2020, that's prior to a lot of COVID-19 impact. A lot of that has happened July 1 through now. So I haven't seen your current financials, but I'm sure they probably look a lot differently than they did June 30th. So that's something to consider as well. A lot of meals tax and things were impacted for sure.
I mean, I feel good that we're this good.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're not where I know other counties are in the Commonwealth,
Yeah.
but that's
When you say
it's concerning.
17% unassigned, that's The recommended minimum, I see.
It is.
That's not necessarily the recommended average, I guess.
No, that's the recommended minimum.
Minimum, yeah.
What's like the
And
recommended
that's
average?
a nationwide minimum, so, you know, that percentages vary different based on the size of localities and things like that, but that is, that's usually the way standard minimum.
Yeah, I just hate to run on just above minimum.
Right.
Yeah.
What is a good average
I would like,
as your order, 20, 22?
yeah, it probably, at least there, is where I'd like for it to go eventually. I realize that we're in the middle of COVID-19, so, you don't necessarily have a direct revenue source currently, to fix that, but it is a good idea to get in that range, knowing that, a lot of the tax collections are usually done during June for you all, as well, so.
In December.
In December, but I think half of it is in June.
Right.
So, you know, if that half was in August, that percentage could be a little lower, because, you know, you have a big revenue source coming in. That revenue percentage could be a little higher, because you're not gonna receive a whole lot of funds until, December. And point out too, for the audit purpose, I know you all delayed the tax collections this year related to COVID. Because that was a 1 year unusual change, we accrued that back into the audit. So those collections, for the delay were pulled back into the audit.
But we had a large number that paid in June anyway. You know, it's just like what we're currently under now. We had the December 5th, but we relieved the penalties and interest through January, whatever date. But from what I can tell, we still have major payments by the December 5th or whatever deadline.
Yesterday.
Yeah, majority of people still are paying on time.
Yeah.
Of course, that minimum has increased over the years too, as to what they wanted us to
Sure.
have.
Sure.
It used to be, 8 to 10%.
Yeah.
That has gone up
Well,
too.
yeah, you remember,
That costs more
we were
money,
talking about that in that E911 meeting, because I kept that stuck in my head, 10%.
Yeah.
Because that's what,
That's what it was for so many years.
for so many years.
Yeah.
So it's actually increased 7% basically.
And before, we've given numbers based on our experience here locally. So they vary sometimes from one locality to another based on how I feel about where they are trending and going.
Right.
So that's why I like to, now that I have this number from a standard GFOA number, I like to put that in there, because that is a standard number for everybody to kind of have as a baseline. But I'm not worried about you all. I think you're in pretty good shape.
Well, that's what I was getting ready to say, it's going to vary, even though that's the minimum, it may be a fine for us to be at 17 and 18, but you take a larger county like Montgomery County, that may not be sufficient.
Correct.
So it's more, even though they've got a standard across the line, it's still individualized, or in my mind, it would be.
Yeah, and another piece of that too is the unassigned fund balance is what you have in your books. If you have capital plans to use funds that are not funded in your capital projects fund, that would be less than that. So, if you plan to use that fund balance, you could start to fund your capital projects and then feel better about your unassigned balance too as well. So, just something to think about, as you're going forward with that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not as concerned about being at 18% as I am just kind of a trend the last couple of years. We're slipping instead of growing, and I'd rather be on the other end where we're slowly growing rather than slowly slipping.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Well, for years you were building it up with the intention of using it
Sure.
for the projects that you are now using it.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is reflecting exactly what the plan was.
Yeah, and when I mentioned I looked back at the taxes from 2011, I looked back at that fund balance percentage too, and I think it was 7%.
Yeah.
And that was total fund balance.
Well, and
That wasn't even unassigned fund balance.
And also, 2.5 of that 7.1 would be going toward the shell building if we hadn't went ahead and borrowed that 3.5, which would have taken it even down lower. So that 2.5 is still within that 7 point, isn't it? Yeah.
It's interesting to roll out 2011, because Mr. Klinger and I were talking about that yesterday. just where we've come from and
Yeah.
the amount, it was just kind of reminiscent, I guess, because,
So yeah, the trend is something, you're seeing that decrease over a few years. If you look back 10 years, it's been a good overall trend.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
it's
I
something-
can agree with that.
we were talking about that yesterday, just the amount.
I remember when the fund balance was zero, so, and you do too. And there's been a lot of strides by every board since then to get it to here. It's not been any one board. It's
Oh, sure, yeah.
every board has come on and recognized and tried to do to get us where we're at, so,
But that was part of the plan too, at that time,
yeah.
to use that money for projects.
They used it.
Yes.
Every dollar.
So I think that's some good information. We have some discussion about that.
Yeah,
Feel pretty good about that. On page 4, just some summary here of trend information on your tax assessment. As you can see, it's overall pretty flat over the 10-year trend. A little bit of increase in personal property and public service and machinery and tools, but overall pretty flat. On page 5, this is the summary of debt. And I always want to make sure that everybody's clear that this includes debt beyond your bonded debt. This includes the net pension liability that I mentioned, the state teacher allocation and the county's pension liability, some of the OPEB, which is like the group life related to VRS items, sick leave and things like that are also included in that amount. So it is your bonded debt, but it's more than that. So that's why the amount seems quite high. Compared to the state average, the number from 2019 and 2020 is the same for the state average there because I don't have 2020 information yet. But to kind of give you a comparison, I would expect 2020 state average to increase. The overall pension liability increased across the state, so I do think that it will increase across localities as well. I have seen that trend regionally here at least. And your number did increase because you issued quite a bit of debt as well. So I know you always issue a little bit more here after the year end, so that will increase, but still pretty sizably below the state average. All right, on page 6, some trend charts there that show the same data in the visual format. Page 7, another couple charts there to kind of give you an idea of where the money came from and then where it goes. A little visual there. On page 8, you can see the changes in the cash and debt. In the cash investments, 2020 decreased. I did not include the bond proceeds that you all have, the $10 million in that 2020 number. So that's why I didn't follow the trend so much on the fund balance in total. But I couldn't try the best way to show that. So I just wanted to point that out.
It'll show up in 2021?
It is in your audit report and it is everywhere else. I was just trying to not show you that you had an increase in cash when a lot of that is in your bond proceeds.
Yeah. Okay.
On page 9, we have some trend information for the school board. As you can see, there was a sizable decrease in charges for services. That is the school meals. As you expect, that they went to, I believe CET this year, where I believe they have all three, is that right? Starting in 2021. But during 2020, during the COVID pandemic, there were no charges for services, so there was a big decrease there. There was a little bit of increase in federal funds to offset some of that. And then you can see the increase from you all as that time goes as well. Their fund balance is restricted where the amount that they have in fund balance there is just the amount that they have for their health insurance fund and the amount that they have for their cafeteria fund. So everything else reverts back to you all.
It's interesting on that chart. What the government is, our increases to school projects are over double over the last years than what the state has been. So we've been pulling our weight plus some.
Yes, and I think that will probably be a continuing trend. I think the state and federal funding We'll probably ramp up here for COVID for a year or two,
Right.
and then I think we'll probably will decline pretty steeply after that.
Something that we're gonna have to be ready for.
Kind of goes back to that ARA funding back when we had that Recovery Act.
Right.
There was a couple of years where their federal funding just shot through the roof, and I believe there were teachers hired in various localities with that funding, and then once that money was gone, it was a problem. So that was a tough situation.
It's something I've been concerned about, especially with schools, because you don't know what the ADM's gonna do in the next few years.
Yeah.
There's a lot of uncertainty with school.
It is, and I haven't heard, I know they were waiting to see if they were gonna be allowed to use the prior year ADM or not. I hadn't heard what the final result was of that.
They haven't, I don't know that they finally decided that part yet. So the big part of it is, are they gonna count the virtual as the,
But even beyond that, what's the trends of homeschooling?
The homeschooling's up because of the
There's so many
pandemic.
things that people have been, different ways of learning that people have been exposed to this
Sure.
year. And who knows what the next, that may affect, our public schools for the next 10 years.
Right.
Good.
Yeah, I was
Absolutely.
gonna say, it's like 3 years down the road, then 7, and
There's,
then
a
10.
child that's in second grade that decided they're gonna do something else, may never come back.
Private school or homeschool, and they may not come back, you're right.
I was talking to the principal in Roanoke on a private school, and they said that their enrollment is through the roof this year. And he said, they're hoping to keep it, that's what their plan is. They're making plans to, how do you maintain this enrollment?
because they're making,
Right.
They wanna grow,
Yeah.
and it's good for them, but it's gonna have an impact on us,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Definitely something to
I'm a
monitor.
little concerned about just how that's gonna impact some of our school projects and stuff.
And I do know that the school board did receive also some COVID funding, and they didn't spend any of it. They received a little bit from the county, so most of what they had spent was, gonna be in 2021 or 2022. I think they had a little longer spend there, so, I'm not sure what their intentions were for it, but that's always something to watch when you use salaries for that. Scoot over to page 11. Expenditures per capita, and I did look, compare to the state comparative report, still only have 2019 as the most recent information. As I looked through there, you all were well below the state average in all of those categories. The comparative report showed education and total expense and not just the locality contribution as I had there. So the state average was 1,681 per capita for the total expenditure for schools, and your amount was 1,526. So you're still below that as well. So well below all of those, and I assume you probably will be as well when the 2020 numbers are released. On page 12, I always leave this in here because I want you to understand how significant an estimate this net pension information is. The amount that's reported in your books is the middle column, so that's 6.75%. It's an estimate, it's a big estimate, and they expect to make 6.75% on the money that's held at BRS each year. Sometimes they do a little better, and sometimes they don't do that well. But you can see the impact of what they actually do based on the estimate. It's very significant. There was a big change this year. They reduced that expectation from 7% to 6.75%, and that led to an increase in the liability of about $600,000 for the county, quite a bit for the schools, more than that. Essentially, they expect to make less than they used to expect to make. So that was an increase in the cost for you all. But there's, look, it's $22 million probably in total net pension liabilities for the county and the schools. That's a big estimate. Nothing you've done wrong, you pay what you're told to pay. It's a assigned liability that you all have to account for.
And that's what the markets and stuff, investments doing well.
Yeah.
In a recession, that number could grow.
Yes, absolutely. And the timing, the market bottomed at one point and it's come back some. But, if they look at it at the bottom, it could be a much different calculation than it would be if it was now. On page 13, very similar information, but you all participate in group life as well. The school board through and health insurance credit also through VRS. Those are considered OPEB, but they're calculated very similar. On page 14 and 15, provided a couple blurbs here on upcoming standards. All of these have been delayed pretty much due to COVID. I think the future activities were supposed to go in play in FY20. It was pushed back to starting after 2019 there, so I believe it will be this next year. Leases will be another year out. So they pushed a lot of these back with the pandemic. The fiduciary activities will have a big impact on the school board. The funds that are held at the schools, the activity funds, will now be included in the audit report, the big report. Those funds we do their audit on a cash basis outside of the report, but it will now be included in the big county report. Leases, that will impact you all a little bit. You all have some operating leases with Enterprise, I believe. Those will show up on the financials more so now. Currently, they're just in there when you pay them. They're expense, but they will be shown as a liability and the right to use that vehicle once we implement that standard. Same with the building. If you're renting a building, if you have a 3-year lease on that building, you calculate the payments as the liability, as the net present value, and then the offset is the right to use that building. No net impact to the bottom line, but a lot more accounting. A few other standards that are coming into play in a few years. I don't think there's too much of an impact related to those. The IT could impact some, but I don't think that would be too significant.
So are you saying, I was gonna ask about these proposals, basically, if I understood you correctly, it's gonna be more paperwork and more work for office staff than actually a big impact overall?
Correct. It could impact your assets and offset the liabilities, essentially. Really, the more impact is gonna be on the staff here, helping to provide us a list of all the leases you all have and that kind of thing. You know, they want us to take all the copiers for the county and total that lease cost and see if that's material. And I just don't see how it's possible. But that's the kind of idea they have in the standards. They want anything you have as a lease, they want us to evaluate it. So for materiality to be included.
My next question is for y'all. Is our current system adaptable to everything that y'all see coming in this? Pretty much.
The lease is, I mean, we don't even know how many Pitney Bowes machines are out there or copiers, and we have some idea from our payments, but it would be quite a bit of gathering of information.
Well, I mean, as far as the computer programs we're using now, are they capable to get this information?
It would be doing this on spreadsheets, because
Right.
we just pay a bill, we don't know how many
You'd have to have each
machines are
department
behind
or
that.
each constitutional office
So it's
provide.
almost like a letter goes out sooner rather than later, just saying, hey, what do you got over there? Give us the information, and then start the sheets, it would seem.
Yes.
It becomes a asset management.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I mean, we know the enterprise is newer, so we have a better,
Well, we have a total
Spreadsheet.
listing on the enterprise.
yeah, right, exactly.
But I'm thinking of the little
Copiers, the mail, yeah, right, the mail.
It'll be a matter of getting it set
I
up
know,
and then you
I
have.
know.
Then once you have a list, so it's just a matter of starting to work on that probably. And all your downtime.
Yeah, right.
And the way to do it would be to require it before we appropriate any money.
Yeah, right.
And you get the information then?
There you don't get money perfect.
You know, Angie's got a lot of that already on her inventory list that we update
Right.
every year, so.
Yeah,
Right.
it's just a matter of
Just
plugging
matter
it
of
in.
getting it set
Yeah,
up.
plugging it in a spreadsheet.
Well, I was just wondering if we had what we needed to get. That was the main thing I was getting to.
And a good point to that question is there are some spreadsheets that are used in things outside of the accounting software. A lot of the trend in the area is looking to move on from Bright, as Bright has worked great for many years and still works great. I just think that there is a trend to move away from that, and the cost of that is extreme. So that's something to consider when you walk down the road. Not that I'm recommending leaving Bright. I think Bright's a great accounting software.
I know.
I just don't know how long it will be great accounting software or available or all those things. So just something to keep in mind as the system itself is.
It does what we need, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it works. I think it's one of the best softwares there is as far as the actual accounting.
Yeah.
The visual side of it and some of the abilities are lacking compared to some of the other ones, but the
So
cost
things
is
like asset management
amazing.
aren't really.
Their forte.
Exactly. Some softwares have that.
Right.
Sometimes keeping it in a spreadsheet works just fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there may be some.
Yeah, exactly.
Ours does.
Yeah.
It
You
could
don't
be
need the
something we
newest
could look
and
into to
shiniest.
see what's out there, but at some point, I'm not saying
Yeah.
right now.
Well, we don't need the newest and shiny, as long as what we've got works for us right now.
I don't see that.
Exactly.
Within the next 5 years.
Right. All right.
As long as it lasts 3 years.
I mean, we've been using it since 1990.
Right.
It does what we need it to.
1990.
And who knows, they might see a trend going somewhere else and might upgrade their current system where it does more than what it does right now.
And they have done that over the years.
Well, I know there's been upgrades, but there may be more.
So yeah, so just want to follow that up. Bright is a great accounting system and works for many localities. Want to mention that there is a trend to move on, but I do think the software works well for you all.
Okay.
On page 16 and 17, I include this because we send it to the state. The state compiles all of our testing of the PRS online navigator system. This is a clean report, good report. We didn't have any issues to report for you all.
Good.
I also was told that if Fairfax passes, the whole state passes. So,
Okay.
I guess it's good we're testing our localities, but I don't know if they need our report that Fairfax passes every year. There are a few items noted here with some recommendations, a couple things with social services. Probably just the main one to me was to make sure that we're reconciling that laser submission each month and tying it to the penny. The variances are small. They're very small. But we do want to make sure that it all works out to make sure that you're not leaving a penny unrequested, essentially. Especially seeing those numbers increase with the case count increasing. We did have some recommendations for the recreation procedures. I know you all took on the recreation authority operations this year. You may have seen that in your assets. You did obtain the land of the park through that. That was pretty much the main asset you got in that process. A lot more procedures and requirements. A few things we thought could be good procedures for that.
Or you work through those with the directors.
Yep. Yeah, I got an email yesterday.
Those would be
Looks good.
corrected.
Yes.
Looks good. So, the last part here, we talked about quite a bit of this. The main part of the first page here in the letter to you all is about the estimates, and we mentioned quite a few of those, and they're very comparable with prior years as well. And the rest of this letter goes on to the process of the audit. I think the audit process went really well. I know Cindy and the staff worked really hard to have everything ready for us, and prepared it for us ahead of time, and we tried to work remote as best as possible in the spring. With working remote is a challenge, and then with the challenges you all had in IT, it was also a challenge, and we did the best we could, and the staff worked hard to get us finished up in time this fall. So the overall audit process went really well. I was happy with everything we found and did. I think the county's in a good position financially currently, and as of June 30th, I don't know about currently, but I hope you are. You were. So I feel good about everything. Any questions?
So, how is your firm positioning itself for COVID-19's expenses and such?
It's a great question.
Thank you.
We have met several times with partners in our office. We've had plenty of email chains with partners in other offices about varying costs. At this point, as of today, there is still currently no audit guidance for CARES money. We were told in August it would be early September. Then we were told it'd be October, and now we're told soon. But to this point, we still don't have any audit guidance. We have done our audits, which is allowed based on the same guidance you all have. Trying to interpret that and make sure that it makes sense. That's what we've done so far. We're hoping the guidance that comes out will be a little bit more detailed and technical and provide us, this is allowed, this is not allowed. I don't know if that's going to be the case. It's coming from the Office of Management and Budget, which is different than the Department of Treasury, who issued the original guidance. They could be completely different. I hope they're very similar. That's what we've had to use so far.
Well, I will say that we've been very lucky that our county attorney, Mr. Durbin, has also given us legal guidance, as it were, for what we've done, and Terry and Cindy and Angie have all worked very hard to keep everything as organized and as complete as possible. But I was just wondering, for your aspect, maybe in January there'll be guidance.
I hope, unfortunately, the money probably has to be spent by then.
Yeah, all of it will be if they don't extend.
Exactly. So the guidance would have been nice before all the money was required to be spent, but that's not what happened. So I think that, and we've gotten various questions from plenty of localities on is this eligible and this not. And our general response, does it make sense? Does it seem to meet the requirements? And particularly if you have a group of people, multiple people in the group that have read the guidance and they feel it's eligible, then document that was the case, that 3 people signed off on it, and particularly if an attorney has read it and they believe it as well.
Right.
That really helps us feel that the process was done correctly. And for us to come in and say that it is an ineligible expense, it has to be pretty blatantly ineligible for us to say that at that point.
Right. Okay.
Have you seen or heard anything yet that concerns you coming out of the department as far as them changing gears?
I have not, no. Actually, just the delays.
Yeah, I know.
The longer they delay, the more turnover they have in the departments and things do change.
I think it's going to be more lenient.
Anything from that department to the Treasury Department between the two of them that concerns you?
Not necessarily, no. So
Good.
I think that it will align pretty nicely.
Okay.
Well, it is the federal government, so
I know.
It is.
you gotta take that grain of salt with it. Overall, did you see anything that I'm just straightforward. Did you see overall anything that is in compliance but gave you concerns? Being in compliance is good, but sometimes you see something that, well, that down the road could cause a problem. And I know I put you on the spot, that's what I do. You can ask that fellow back in the corner there.
No, I think that there was some process of getting the right procedures in place for the recreation, since that was a new operation for you all.
Right.
But not necessarily anything concerning this year. I was expected, essentially.
To be honest, to have only one thing about numbered, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
That just
Some
shows
of
the
those
way our
small items,
staff.
like the social services security officer, that's a state requirement that we're required to look at. I don't have concerns that it hasn't been done in a year and a half, but it's required to be done each year.
Right.
So I don't think that causes a problem.
I think they'll hear a recommendation to get in line. I just got a feeling they're gonna hear that.
Oh, I'm sure they probably already have.
It's gonna be reinforced.
I'm sure they probably already have gotten that taken care of. But overall, no, I think that everything worked out really well this year. In the past, we've had issues with different VRS deductions or things like that, but this year it worked out pretty well.
But I will say one thing in defense. A lot of their certification courses and stuff has been suspended by the state office. So that could come into play there too, at least since last January.
Yeah, and I actually expected some changes in the state audit requirements from COVID impacts, but they really didn't. Even though the APA is currently working remotely, they have pushed forward and actually required us to add on a review of the fire funds this year. So that was a new test that we were required to do. Instead of pulling off, they pushed forward. So I don't know if we'll see that. We'll see what they come next year.
Okay.
Yeah, the Gatsby ones that I see don't necessarily concern me. It's the ones that they hadn't put in writing yet that.
And the ones that are not in writing yet will be at least 3 years out. That's not part of it. Yeah. Not part of it, so. Any other questions?
Just tell everybody we miss seeing everybody.
Yeah.
And, at our normal yearly gathering.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, for me, I just wish everybody a very happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
And
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for working with our staff so well, and, we've got great people, but I appreciate the, you and your firm working well with us and always being available, so we really appreciate you.
We appreciate working in the county, so we're happy to do that. So if you want anything else, my contact is on the front of that small handout, or maybe the second page if you had one that had the other cover on it. but if you need anything, feel free to reach out at any point.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you all.
And one good thing is, like if you have a turnover in treasurers, you have to have an audit. You don't with county administrators, so that's a good thing.
Well, I'm gonna ask a question now. And we got their report from working with y'all. Did y'all have any problems working with them?
No.
Oh, they're wonderful.
Yeah.
And we do have, ads out now for audit for the next 3 years, so.
Good. Oh, this ends, that's all, all
This is the last one.
Yeah, okay,
So
good.
you'll bring those to you.
Yep.
Get bids next month.
All right.
Are the, maybe I'm thinking of the real estate assessment. One year that we did a committee that interviewed.
That was us.
Yeah.
You and Linda were both on the committee.
Yeah, we can
So
do
many
that.
different things over the years.
Yeah, I know.
It was, but I remember interviewing several different
Yep.
firms.
We can sure do that.
Absolutely.
Hopefully we'll get more than one response.
Yeah.
You all can do that.
Well, compared to a lot of other counties, ours is not as complicated as some of them are. So,
Cindy has everything and, you know, with the help of the rest of the staff in such good order when they get here, so.
Yep.
Easy process.
I don't
We
know
may
if I
have
call
a-
it an easy process, but
Well, they're just so good at keeping it all together. All of you have been over the years. I mean, in my 5 years.
Well, this year was a challenge.
Absolutely.
I think Tabitha ended up putting in EDA 4 times. Because after the initial problem, they thought they had her set up, she re-entered it, it wasn't set up correctly, she lost it again. This year was a challenge.
Huh.
might not have been as bad, but I can remember a few years back, way back, that they were a little rough, but.
was that back in the day, Jerry, where you had to use stone tablets?
Yeah, you use the stone tablets and the, yeah.
It was when we changed firms one year,
Oh, yeah.
and I was looking up stuff from like 25 years ago, and
That was terrible.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you all wanna take a break here. We'll have a few minutes with Mr. Durbin.
Yeah, I could use a
It'll be
5
honest,
minutes.
If you need a break,